in August last year, actually, it was July actually, that Dr. Owings, whom many of you know, she has done some excellent presentations. I mean, really, really great presentations on the brain and nutrition, autism, and of course the nitric oxide, which is very, very, very important for your cardiovascular system. Well, sometime in July, she had just come back from a meeting. Having listened to Dr. Luna, she was blown away by his intelligence and the ability, his passion, his ability to relate his information to the audience, and his ability to relate to the audience. And she said, you have to have him on your webinars. And I'm glad I just took her word for it, because he has come, and this is his third presentation now, and he has done some an outstanding job at every time he has come on to do a presentation. And we are so fortunate that even as busy as he is, he can still find time to come back and do more presentations for us. So thank you, Dr. Luna. Sherry, you want to go ahead and introduce him?
I'm here. Sorry about that. I had to unmute myself. Just took a second. It was a slight delay there. Okay, I would be honored to introduce Dr. Luna. Dr. Luna is a 1994 graduate of the University of Alabama School of Dentistry. After graduation, he completed a 2-year residency at the Medical School of South Carolina before returning back to Birmingham, where he served the public's needs since 1997. Dr. Luna has received multiple awards and recognitions during his 12-year career, including being recognized as one of America's top dentists every year since 2003, and one of the leading health professionals of the world in 2005. He was also voted Best of Birmingham in 2008 and 2009, and is one of the youngest dentists to ever receive a fellowship award in the Academy of General Dentistry. Dr. Luna presents multiple lectures throughout the year to the public, dentists, and physicians on topics ranging from cosmetic dentistry to TMJ, mercury fillings, and treatment for snoring and sleep apnea. Known for his cosmetic dentistry, Dr. Luna's work has been highlighted in dental laboratory magazines and continuing education courses throughout the country. Dr. Luna is an avid outdoorsman and enjoys almost every activity that you can perform outdoors, including hiking, camping, boating, fishing, mountain climbing, triathlons, and more. His favorite things to do are traveling and spending as much time as possible with his daughters. So welcome, Dr. Luna.
Oh, thank you. So it's a pleasure to be here again. I'm still looking behind me to see who that person is you're just talking about. All right. Well, as I just said, it's always a pleasure to come here. I enjoy it, and I love what you're doing, and I'm sure everybody that's listening today really appreciates the effort that you've put into everything you do here. So I know you always thank us, but at the same time, you may not get it, but we always thank you for the things that you're doing for the public. I hope you know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you're ready, I mean, I have spoken in the past, and it's kind of been a little more broad in general. We talk about 2, 3, 4 subjects at a time while I'm here speaking. And today I think we're going to focus down a little bit more just about silver fillings and the mercury content that's in them, because we got a lot of questions from that last time we were here.
Mm-hmm.
So without further ado, I guess we will get started. Again, I'm sure Dr. Day will interrupt me if there's any major questions that need to be answered or asked at that time. So please feel free to do that. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So what we're going to talk about specifically is called amalgam or silver fillings. This is your typical silver filling here. There's a lot of debate. This is probably the subject in dentistry causing more arguments, questions, and behind-the-scenes political stuff than ever in the history of dentistry. But it's not something that just recently started. And we're going to get into the history of it real soon. So what is it? Let's start with that first. Amalgam, or silver fillings, is a metal filling material that's actually been used since the early 1800s. It is composed of approximately 50% mercury, with the remainder of it being silver, copper, tin, zinc, and sometimes other metals. But the main ingredient of a silver filling, again, is mercury, 45 to 55%. So the true history of it, the first silver filling was actually done as early as 659 AD. But mercury was added to the product in the early 1800s, which helped bind everything together. In 1843, it was the American Society of Dental Surgeons who declared the use of amalgam as malpractice. So we're already in 1843 talking about controversy with this product. They rescinded their comments in 1850 due to the arguments from other groups, and in 1856 the association was disbanded. Soon after this, the American Dental Association was formed in 1859 and is still in use today. So the American Dental Association started then, and it's the same society we have today. And it supported the use of amalgam restorations mainly due to its simplicity and its price. So it was easy to use, and it was cheap. So what is it that the ADA thinks about this product? Why is it that it likes it? Their defense at this point in time is that it's a product that's been used for over 170 years with a great track record. The biggest thing they say, it's inexpensive and it can be placed in a wet environment. I will hear this over and over again, and all the dentists who are pro-amalgam dentists who believe in this product, that's what they always say. So in other words, what they're saying is that this product is cheap and it's easy to use. My biggest question that always comes up when I'm talking with another dentist about this product is this second part where they say it can be placed in a wet environment. In my opinion, when they say this, I'm like, you are saying that you do not have to put it in a sterile environment. You're basically saying it's okay to have blood, saliva, spit in that preparation that we've created in the tooth, and then put the filling on top of it, and in essence, trapping bacteria underneath it. We're going to talk about that more in just a minute. And the ADA says it's a safe product. They can't verify that the mercury from the silver fillings is causing all the problems that people are now discussing. So what are my thoughts in particular on this product? Why do I think this product should not be used anymore? Well, first off, simple, 50% of it's mercury. Mercury is leaking out of the filling. It's increasing the amount of mercury that's in your body, and it's a poison. We all know that, so obviously it's just not a good product to use. Going back to the mercury, I guess I should stop there for a second. This is where most dentists will have this argument, and there's no true way of determining, I should say, that mercury is causing all these health problems. We would have to take somebody, two people from infancy, give one person silver fillings, give one person a different type of filling, feed them the same food their entire lives, and see the difference in health. So it's almost impossible to truly test the problems that this product by itself is causing, because we're receiving mercury from everything from the fish and the air and everything else. Now there's two things in particular that I don't think any dentist can argue about. One is that silver fillings fracture teeth. It is a metal, and it expands and contracts with hot and cold. We're always eating something hot, drinking hot coffee, drinking cold Cokes, sodas, everything else. So this metal expands and contracts. It originally was put in a hole to fit this hole. As it expands, it puts pressure on the remaining natural tooth structure. Obviously, that tooth is going to crack to give for that metal. Now we have a crack there, and that crack is a leak or a gap that microscopic bacteria can enter and now start a cavity. So as we've been taking silver fillings out for almost 15 years now, it always appeared to me that under 80 to 90% of all the fillings we removed, we would find cavities. And so from that standpoint, there's no way this product should be used anymore, in my opinion. So when I talk to another dentist, I basically say, look, we're competing against a product that's been there for over 150 years. I think we've advanced since then, and there's no reason we should be using this product when we have other products that are much better. So let's go into each thing that I've talked about, the mercury, the fact that they break teeth, and the fact that they leak, and let's see what the ADA says about these comments. First, we're going to talk about the mercury. What's the ADA standpoint on mercury? When the big debate first came out with mercury and if it was a problem, the ADA stated that the mercury doesn't leak out of the filling. The mercury actually is bound inside of this material and does not leak out at all. Well, then other anti-amalgam dentists and dentists like myself kept proving and showing evidence that does leak out. And there's ways of recording that at this point in time. And so the ADA came back and said, well, okay, it is leaking out, but it's leaking out in real small amounts. Well, of course, dentists like myself and other scientists continued to advance their technology, and we were able to record the amount of mercury vapors that were leaking out of these fillings as we're chewing. And the ADA came back with saying, okay, we do know that the mercury is leaking out in large amounts, but it is a metallic mercury and not a methylated mercury. I don't want to get into a big debate over the types of mercury, but just a quick summary here. Methylated mercury is the mercury that we find in fish and that we hear all the scares about. That when we're only allowed to eat so much fish or so much tuna a week, it's because of methylated mercury that we have this problem. And we're going to go into this, and so the ADA said metallic mercury is not methylated mercury and is not so much of an issue to a human being. So we're left at this time to believe that it's just not dangerous. It's not a dangerous product. So then from my defense, I'd say, okay, well, let's look at some of the evidence that's out there. The World Health Organization did a study, and in the study, on this graph, they say the number of tooth surfaces that had silver fillings in them, as the surfaces went up, so meaning we have more silver fillings, the amount of mercury that was found in the brain went up also. So as we got more silver fillings, more mercury was found in the brain. So they say that the mercury didn't leak out. This is a snoring appliance that we make here. I think there's not a person on this planet that couldn't look at this appliance and tell me exactly where the 2 silver fillings in this individual's mouth are. It's obvious, and it's obvious that it leaks out. So the ADA's other defense on this, in the end, started off with there was not leaking, it's leaking out in small amounts, and then it came out with it's metallic, not methylated mercury, so it's not dangerous to us. So this was off a website, Michigan State University, from the Office of Radiation, Chemical, and Biological Safety. And we'll read all this for you. Accidents have resulted in several cases of mercury poisoning in Michigan in the past 2 years. 4 members of a Lincoln Park family were killed after one member attempted to refine dental amalgam in his home while attempting to recover the silver. High levels of mercury were found throughout the house, including wrapped food inside the freezer. The entire house had to be demolished and disposed of in a hazardous waste landfill. So as the ADA is trying to say that this mercury is not a problem, it's not leaking out, and that it's actually metallic and not methylated, not a problem, here's a prime example saying, yes, if there's enough of this mercury, obviously it's a problem. The guy was trying to get the silver out of the mercury fillings. All 4 members of the family died. The entire house was infested with mercury and had to be demolished. That's unbelievable. It's amazing. So how does it work? Why is metallic mercury still an issue? Well, as we're looking at this graph, there's mercury coming from all sorts of different areas, and there are different forms of mercury. There's mercury that's released from factories and everything else that gets in the air. Okay, as it gets in the air, it settles down into the water. It gets on algae, plankton, sinks to the bottom, and starts a process down here. Well, the same mercury that's found in other sources like silver fillings goes through our water lines, gets into our sewer system, and eventually it gets into our streams and rivers and into our large bodies of water, lakes, oceans, and everything else too. It goes through the same process, comes down to the bottom to the ocean, and it starts a methylation process here. So whatever type of mercury it was before becomes methylated mercury. Then the smaller bacteria, plankton, everything else gets infested with this mercury, and then starts the chain reaction of the small fish, bait fish eating that, to the larger fish, to the next largest fish, and on and on and on until here we are. We fish the biggest fish, the tunas, swordfish, and everything else, and we eat that. as we go up this chain, the mercury accumulation continues to rise. So as the biggest fish, it's receiving all the mercury from here to the next fish to the next fish. So as the bigger fish eats it, its mercury levels rise, and that's why we're so concerned about the big predator fish such as the tuna and swordfish that are eating all the other fish. And that's the problem with every form of mercury out there. All right, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit. We talked about mercury, and I'm going to actually go back to it in just a minute and really fine-tune that aspect of it, really look at it. But I want to address the other two areas that I brought up why this product shouldn't be used, and that's that silver fillings fracture teeth. And the ADA says that it doesn't. From my standpoint, every single week there's a tooth that comes in that is broken with a large silver filling sitting right in the middle of it. And I'm sure most people listening to this probably have some silver fillings in their mouth and at some point in time have bitten down and half the tooth is broken off and there's still a silver filling sitting right there. And it's due to that silver filling that this tooth is fractured. So I'm just going to show some pictures just of things that we see every day. We were taking out the silver fillings, and you can see the cracks coming off the teeth. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cracks I can see in this one tooth by itself. We had the silver filling here. We took it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cracks apparently coming off of it. But if we look closely at this, we'll follow this crack from here. It's going across. Then you can see this black line here. Right here's where the nerve of the tooth actually sits, this dark orange area, goes right through the nerve to the other side and out the back of this tooth here. The reality is this tooth has been split by the silver filling. We're eventually going to lose this tooth. Person's having pain is because every time they bite down, this tooth is actually opening and closing from this crack right here. And it was causing pain and nerve, and so we into the nerve and we end up losing this tooth for no other reason than a small silver filling, no bigger than this one, that was in the tooth. Another example, took out a couple silver fillings and you can see a fracture line coming from here, straight across the bottom, across here, and it's hard to see it right here, but it comes back out right through there. And you see a couple other fracture lines coming off here, here, and here also. Again, a great, wonderful tooth, not a very large filling, but the product and its properties fractured this tooth and will probably end up losing this tooth in the end. And this is what I was talking about earlier. We have a silver filling sitting in a tooth. You bite down, half the tooth breaks off. All right, we see this all day long. I will retire from dentistry stating that silver fillings by themselves have caused more unnecessary dentistry than anything else. This could have easily been prevented. The problem here now is we look at this tooth, it's broken half, it's going to end up needing a buildup and a crown, and if lucky, not a root canal. Worst case scenarios like the previous two photos, we're looking at losing a tooth, and now we have to replace that missing tooth with a bridge or an implant or something that's going to cost thousands of dollars. So why would we continue to want to use this product when we could simply replace this or this with different materials that would have cost significantly less, $100, $200, and prevented all this thousands of dollars have been spent and potential loss of tooth. All right, so the other thing I talked about here is that amalgams leak. As we've been taking these fillings out, it just seemed that every single one of them had a cavity underneath it, and it just continued to blow my mind. When I originally started my practice, I guess it was about 15 years ago now, we were taking silver fillings out mainly for cosmetic reasons. People didn't like them. They wanted them replaced with a white filling, and so we obliged them with that. But as we continue to take them out, every single one of them had cavities, and so I started getting concerned and opening my eyes to the potential problem with this product. And as I looked further into it, then we started going into the mercury aspect of it, and that's how I've gotten to this point now where I just don't think it's a product that should be used anymore. So the ADA, of course, they don't believe this either. So we'll show a couple more photos. Right here were 4 silver fillings we were getting ready to remove. Took one out, decided to take a picture. All right, as we look at this tooth looks fine. The silver filling looks fine here. 90% of every dentist that would see this would say there's nothing wrong with this filling. It does not need to replace. You can see a fracture line coming off here, little black area here, and then you can see a fracture line on this one coming right here. So in the next slide, those 2 silver fillings are gone. And we can see that little black area that was right here is a big orange area right here. It's all cavities underneath here. There's cavities here, wrapping around the side of this tooth, and some over here also, real close to this fracture line. Come over to the other tooth where we had that fracture line, and the whole side of the tooth here, all that black is nothing but cavities. Another example. This was an individual who wanted their silver fillings removed for no other reason than cosmetic reasons. Just didn't like the way they looked and wanted something that was nice and white. Every single filling here looks fine. Not a problem with it. Most every dentist would look at this and say, looks great, no problems, have a great day. As we removed them, I took another photo and you'll see large cavity here. Not very difficult. It's difficult to see here because there's a bubble here, but there's some orange that you can see here and here. Huge cavity over here. Huge cavity over here. So out of these 5 teeth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have 4 obvious cavities, and I don't really see any at this point in time here. That's 4 out of 5. That's 80%. So I bring out that percentage right there because there was a recent study done at the Las Vegas Institute, which is a very high-end teaching institute for cosmetics, TMJ, and other things of this nature. Well, they took out 340 silver fillings. Then they used a special dye that attaches just to cavities and painted it on the surfaces of the tooth after the fillings were gone. And under 67% of all the amalgams that were removed, they found cavities. So again, I was always saying it seemed like 80–90% of the silver fillings I was removing had cavities, but I wasn't really counting. I was just doing it as an observation. A true study showed that almost 70% did, and that's basically what I was saying. So the reality is that almost every one of the fillings have leaked and have cavities underneath them. What was even worse is in this study, 16% of those 67% that had cavities, 16% of them had gross decay in them, and by gross they mean that the tooth was so soft under there that they just had to use a little hand instrument and it could just be scooped out, almost like cottage cheese. Okay, I want to stop there for just a second, kind of review where we've gone so far. There was 3 main reasons why I don't think this product should be used. First off, 50% of it's mercury. It's a poison. It's increasing the amount of mercury in your body. It obviously shouldn't be used. The other 2 reasons is the fact that it would fracture the tooth, causing a lot of unnecessary dentistry, potential loss of your tooth, and that they leak and tend to have a lot of cavities underneath them. Any questions so far?
Does not look like it.
Okay, because I ran through that maybe a little bit faster than I intended to, but I really wanted to get to this next section, which is the mercury, and for people like myself versus the American Dental Associations and the different beliefs on the mercury aspect of it. So let's go ahead and move on.
Great.
Okay, so the American Dental Association's thoughts on amalgams. If we're going to review again, their thoughts of it, it's a product that's been used for over 170 years with a great track record. It is inexpensive and can be placed in a wet environment. Again, that means it's cheap and easy to use. And so they say that with this track record that it's a safe product. There's no positive proof that this product has caused mercury poisoning. Okay, so we're going to look at this. I'm going to read most of it. I'm going to go slower here. This is a sheet that actually comes on the label when you buy amalgam. This is our information. So we'll start at the beginning, and this actually is probably 5 to 7 years old now, and I have to order the product, I guess, and I've just refused to do it, but I need to get an updated sheet. If we start at the top, it says this dental amalgam product contains mercury. The placement of dental amalgam in a patient will increase the level of mercury in your body. The use of a rubber dam may decrease the amount of mercury absorbed by a patient during the removal or placement of a silver filling. The health authorities of the various countries, including Canada, Germany, France, the United Kingdom, Norway, and Austria, have recommended against the placement or removal of an amalgam in certain individuals, such as pregnant and nursing women and persons with impaired kidney function. You should check with the authorities in your country that govern the practice of dentistry and dental materials to determine what recommendations or restrictions apply to the use of dental amalgams. The United States Food and Drug Administration and the World Health Organization have stated that there is no basis for any restrictions on the use of amalgams. So you remember, one thing I already did was I showed something I got off of the World Health Organization's website that stated that the more silver filling somebody had, the more mercury was found in the brain. If I continue on, in rare cases, a patient may suffer a localized hypersensitivity reaction to dental amalgam. Proper care should be taken when handling this product. Protective measures such as the wearing of gloves, using the product in a well-ventilated area, using an enclosed amalgamator when mixing the product, proper disposal of spent capsules, and any excess unused amalgam, and the use of HGX or similar type mercury-absorbing compounds in the event of spillage should be employed. It's on the instructions, but they're telling us all this stuff we need to do with it to take proper care, and at the same time trying to tell us that this product has no problems. I'll go a little bit further. These precautionary procedures should always be used in addition to procedures recommended by your local regulatory agency and dental association. The following information is contained in the health hazard data section of the material safety data sheet for this product. And it goes into all the different areas of the body here, from eye contact to chronic exposure may be deposited in the lens of the eye causing visual disturbances, to skin irritations, neurotoxin, nephrotoxin. Acute exposure could cause redness, irritation, chronic exposure, possible sensitization, irritation of the skin, swelling. Inhalation could cause all sorts of problems. It just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. And it goes further than that, but that's probably as big as a scanner could get. And then down here it says that this product contains mercury, a chemical known to the state of California to cause birth defects or other reproductive harm. Again, it's still a safe product to use.
This seems pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, nobody sees this. The thing is, most dentists don't read this, obviously, so then they sit there and tell me, the mercury's not leaking out of this. That's what we learned in dental school. I say, just read the label. The very first 2 sentences tell you that it's increasing the amount of mercury in your body. And most dentists will look at me and go, oh, I didn't know that. It blows my mind.
Oh, wow.
So we continue here. So that's some local thoughts. That's our thoughts. What about international thoughts? And they brought it up already for us. So I'm going to go into some of the literature that's out there now. Norway actually banned dental amalgam. So Norway has acted in the new year to discontinue the use of dental amalgam. The action was part of a sweeping effort to restrict the use of mercury and was done so largely for environmental reasons. It is possible that Sweden, I love that, it's possible that Sweden may have taken a similar action, but we have not been able to adequately verify this with reliable information at this time. This is the American Dental Association. We know they know the answer. We will provide additional information next week if the issue flares up in the media. No new scientific studies or other new data have been cited as calling for this sweeping action. The ban is not expected to have any economic impact in these countries because of their national health care systems. For example, Sweden's health care system stopped paying for amalgam fillings years ago. So obviously they know that Sweden's dropped it and banned it. Now I love this here. Norway's announcement has not made news in the United States yet. Should the media pick up on this story, you may receive inquiries from your patients. We encourage you to be prepared by visiting our website. And it goes into a little bit with the patients and everything else here. This was in the American Dental Association in January of 2008. So they're sitting there telling us right now, Norway's banned it. We don't truly know if Sweden's banned it or not. Come on, it's the American Dental Association. They know. And if it hasn't leaked into the news yet, but if the media picks up on it, you got to be prepared to handle it. So the ADA is trying to tell us that there's no problem with it, but behind the scenes, this was actually an email that I received. Behind the scenes, they're telling the dentist, hey, get ready. If the media catches this, we have to be prepared. I'll continue on. So here's this. They talked about this already. It was on the label. Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Germany, and other countries have, and I'm going to put in quotes, possibly banned amalgam. So I think we all know what the answer to that is. They mentioned Canada also, and Canada has possibly put restrictions on how many silver fillings can be placed in the mouth, like maybe 4 for adults and maybe 2 for children. So I just want to say it's possible that these things have been out there, but not for sure.
It seems to me, Doc, that the ADA is purposefully hedging. Let me ask you this: how much of a hit would the dental association or dentists around this country take if all of a sudden it came out that these amalgams that they've been putting in patients' mouths have been, over the past 50, 60, 100 years, have been causing trouble? Well, what's a scenario? What's a possible scenario?
And that's the problem, and that's why it's not coming out truly as a product that has issues. The second it does, and I hate saying it this way, every attorney is now going to be suing every dentist that's ever taken out or placed a silver filling. We're talking about millions and millions of silver fillings in people's mouths. Mm. It would completely destroy the profession and everything that's going on. So I think that's the one reason why we truly haven't heard this, because unfortunately this country is a litigious country. You know, we can sue for anything and everything, including hot coffee. You know.
That still freaks me out. Coming from a different culture, that really freaks me out.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You know, or a burglar that walks in your house and you're the one that gets sued because you shot him.
Right.
It just it doesn't make sense.
No.
All right, we'll continue on here. Hopefully. There we go. So what else is happening behind the scenes here? Things that the public doesn't hear and emails that I get. April of 2007. This again is from the ADA website and things that they're sending out to all dentists. And it's a little long, but I want to read it again just because it's showing how the ADA is trying to hide everything. It's unusual for a dental society to persuade regulators to treat dentistry differently from other regulated entities. But that's what the Southern Maryland Dental Society accomplished last month. The Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, a local wastewater treatment facility, amended regulations to allow dentists to follow best management practices in lieu of compliance with rigid numerical limits for mercury discharge into wastewater. And this is great. Numerical discharge limits for mercury are typically set so low that most dental offices can't meet them, even with an amalgam separator. So right off the bat saying, hey, there's no way a dental office is going to be able to meet the restrictions on the amount of mercury they can get out in the water. At first, the WSCC considered requiring separators. Then a group of dentists from the local and state societies met several times with them after conferring with ADA staff. The result was development of new language that does not require separators. Adhering to best management practices will be considered sufficient compliance with the regulations. This is a splendid example of successful tripartite advocacy. In other words, we beat them. We were able to say that we are not responsible for our mercury. They went on to say, in Maine, a joint committee of the Maine legislature sent a strong message last month when it voted overwhelmingly to recommend defeat of a measure that would have first restricted, then banned the use of dental amalgam. So Maine was one of the first states to do this. They actually had a consent form that they were trying to have patients sign that would have said, you're about to receive a product that contains mercury in it, and the patient would have to sign it agreeing to it, and then they were going to eventually have the product banned. With this strong ought not to pass vote, the committee in effect ended debate on the issue for this legislative session. The Maine Dental Association, working with our Public Affairs Initiative, presented compelling testimony to the committee during a contentious hearing prior to the final vote, and then used grassroots contacts with legislators to reinforce the message that this would be a misguided step. I love that last sentence too. They used grassroots contacts with legislators. We used our inside contacts, and I don't know exactly how it works, but maybe it's kind of like this recovery plan we have now, where all this big money goes to these big corporations, and next thing you know, the CEOs have given themselves these $100 million bonuses. I wonder if it might be somewhat the same way. But they basically again said here that we have defeated the use of dental amalgam from being banned.
Hmm.
It's amazing. It always amazes me.
Yeah. Oh boy.
And I don't think I don't want to bore everybody, so I got a little bit more, but not a lot more. But I always laugh reading this.
Oh no, this is good. Please keep going. This is good. Take your time.
All right. So this is November of 2007 again. The ADA has updated its best management practices, and by that, what they've recommended stuff for us. Okay, best management, we should be trying to do this, we should be trying to do that. Try your best not to spill your silver fillings, put it away in your trash cans, blah, blah, blah. Try not to let it get in the water systems. But the reality is when we suction, the suctions we have in our office go into these water lines. Now, some offices, most, like myself, have these traps, these separators that at least hopefully catch it one time. Like my office, we have a trap that's right after the suction. We have another trap that's in another spot, and another trap before it, on the outside of the building, before it actually would be able to get to the main public water lots. So the ADA has updated its best management practice for amalgam waste to include amalgam separators as a voluntary measure, not through regulation, as an additional means of capturing waste amalgam for recycling. So they're saying that we're not requiring dentists to have these, but recommending them. That would be great. Okay, there was a time where they were considering making every dentist buy them. The action was taken by the ADA House of Delegates in San Francisco last month. Separators compliant with International Standards Organization standards, which the ADA helped develop, capture at least 95% of amalgam particles and reduce the amount of amalgam entering wastewater treatment plants. Now let's think about that for just a second. We're capturing 95% of all the amalgam particles that are leaving. But at the same time, just a little earlier, we read where the ADA said there is no way that we can keep within the low limits set for mercury into the water. So that basically says that only 5% of the amalgam particles have to get in the water supply, and that is way over the limit set up by our nation. That kind of tells you how much mercury is in these amalgams. So if I continue on, dental offices using prior ADA best management practices already captured about 80% of waste amalgam. ADA amalgam waste best management practices have been effective in showing that voluntary programs are sufficient and regulation isn't needed. The House of Delegates also directed the development of a new brochure to help patients understand the materials used, blah, 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 blah. So the main point there again was it doesn't take 1%, 2%, maybe 3% of all the amalgams to get into the public water line, and we've already gone over the limit that is set by our country. But again, the ADA is trying to tell us it's not a problem, and the mercury is not dangerous. again, we'll continue. This is another area of the country. We filed comments opposing mandatory amalgam separators, so mandatory. They're trying to keep it voluntary. Throughout the Great Lakes region, the comments went to a consortium of the EPA, congressional delegations, and state officials from the Great Lakes states and Native American tribal representatives. As we've previously reported, this group released a draft Great Lakes Mercury End Products phase-down strategy in late August. While the strategy offers only recommendations, not mandates to state and local governments, this is an influential group, and its recommendations will likely carry substantial weight. Again, we are politically doing everything possible from an American Dental Association standpoint to prevent these amalgam separators from being mandatory, from having the limits that are set for everybody else dealt to dentists. And so because there's just no way we're going to be able to meet those limits. And that's pretty scary to think that it doesn't take more than maybe 2% of the silver fillings that are coming into my office to go over the set standards for every other business that's out there. And again, from an ADA standpoint, remember, it's a safe product. So this one, I'm not going to read all this, but what I wanted to do here is I just want you to read this yellow part with me down here, about 2/3 the way down. Okay, this is the FDA final report on dental amalgam, and it's hard to see here, but it was in July 28th of 2009. So it wasn't even a year ago that this came out. Okay, today's regulation also reclassifies the mercury component of dental amalgam from a Class 1, which is a low-risk product, to a Class 2 moderate-risk product. The only other thing above that is Class 3 being a severe risk. Okay? Over the past 6 years, the FDA has taken several steps to assure that the classification of dental amalgam is supported by strong science. So the ADA is always trying to say that they have all this strong science saying that there's no problems with silver fillings. At the same time as they're telling the public that, behind the scenes they're emailing us with all the stuff I've been showing you. Hey, we defeated this today. We defeated that. We're not going to have these separators. We're not going to have that. But the Federal Drug Administration has been studying this for years, over 6 years, based on strong science, and on that science they said that dental amalgam should not be considered a low-risk product but a moderate-risk product. As Dr. Dave already questioned me, I don't think it became a Class 3 product because at that point in time it could actually destroy the profession.
Right. So even with it being at a moderate risk, there's still wouldn't there still be a risk of litigation?
Oh, don't say that, please. Don't have any attorneys listening to this. It's because of the ADA's public stance and the way they are. I think it would probably be hard for an attorney to try to prove that at this point in time. Again, like everything else, you're going to have science that says it is a problem, and you're going to probably find some science from the ADA that's supported that's going to say it's not a problem. And they're going to look back and say, hey, this product's been used for over 170 years now, and please show me some case that's proven to have mercurial diseases, mercury diseases from silver fillings. And the proof would be hard to do that, because then from a defense standpoint they could be saying, well, you know, there's mercury in the fish, there's mercury in the water, there's mercury in the air, there's mercury in thermometers, there's mercury, and so I don't think that it would be feasible or very easy for an attorney to prove that it was the dental amalgam that caused the problem.
Got it. Okay.
So I might jumped ahead here again. So from the, we're talking about what is it then that the ADA really thinks about silver fillings? Do they really believe that it's a safe product? Well, we've got documented mercury poisoning cases. One of the strongest ones, in my opinion, was showing the house that had to be demolished because this guy was specifically targeting dental fillings to get the silver out of. I've shown that from the World Health Organization, who says the product's okay, on their website showed that the more silver fillings you had, the more mercury was found in the brain. The states were trying to adopt consent forms. I mentioned that. Maine was the first one to do it. Alabama actually already had it on their ballot at the same time to discuss a consent form. that patients would have to sign that says, I understand I'm about to receive a product that contains mercury in it. Alabama at that time was very politically involved. At that time, Alabama, of course, denied it and said that that wasn't a good idea. Many states are talking about developing amalgam restrictions. Maine, again, was one of the first ones. Minnesota's another one. They're always talking about these amalgam separators becoming mandatory. They have fought to make sure you do not have to follow the regulations for the water lines, which I've hit on a lot here. It doesn't take probably 1, 2, or 3% of all the silver fillings in my office to actually probably exceed the limits that are allowed for other companies. The FDA has now come out in the last year with a new classification, taking it from a Class 1 low-risk product to a Class 2 moderate-risk product based on 6 years of scientific evidence. So from that standpoint, can the ADA truly believe that this is a safe product? There's just no way they really can. All right, so I hope I've been able to convince people that this is just not a product that should be in your mouth. The mercury is a big issue. I have seen patients' results health-wise that I just couldn't imagine. We have removed their silver fillings and their headaches have just disappeared. I have letters of patients that said they were on 1,600 milligrams of Advil every single day for headaches, and the second we removed the silver fillings, all their headaches went away. Never had to take another Advil again. I've had patients with lupus, and after the silver fillings were removed, their lupus counts disappeared. My wife was actually one, my ex-wife I should say. She had a hyperthyroid. She was not taking the medications like she should have to control it. We took out her silver fillings just for a cosmetic reason only. Next thing you know, her thyroid came back to normal. Did not start taking any medications, nothing changed. The only thing we did for her was take her silver fillings out, and within a month her thyroid was normal again. I can't tell you how many stories like this that I have from just generally feeling better, having more energy, not as tired, headaches going away, and other systemic issues get improved. It's been amazing, and it still continues to surprise me on a daily basis. And today I actually had a patient come in. It wasn't that patient, but it was his wife that had her silver fillings removed, and then all her headaches disappeared when she had hers removed. So pretty amazing stories. So when we see this, what are we going to do? Well, you could always do a larger silver filling. A lot of dentists would do that. Obviously, by now, I hope I've shown you that that would be the last thing you want to do. More mercury, chances of breaking the tooth are going to be higher, and the reality is it's going to be leaking. We could go to a composite. That's a white filling. What you hear most people say, porcelain filling. We could use gold. Gold has been around for a long time too. Not a bad option. Honestly, I don't have a problem with gold. It does not contain mercury as long as the gold content is high. It's called a high noble gold material, at least having 75 to 80% gold, platinum, and palladium. You're talking about a very good product that has a good track record. When you do the studies, that you will see the composite or porcelain materials actually last a little bit longer than gold does, though. So I've just gotten away from it completely. We could go to crowns, porcelain over a metal base. In my practice, there's just no reason to have any metal in anything today. No fillings needed, no crowns needed. The porcelain materials that are out there now are as strong as any metal, so we can completely avoid metal completely. So my choice a lot of times is going to be the composite if it's a smaller filling, or an all ceramic restoration, a porcelain type material. And that's what we're looking at. I think this one on the left, of course, here's a gold crown. Over here we have a porcelain type filling that's coming in here, filling that in. This is composite, and this is composite, or just plain white filling material, which is somewhat, it's a resin material, so it's kind of like a plastic material, for lack of better words.
last as long as the regular, the silver amalgam fillings?
Yes, that's the big, a lot of pro-amalgam dentists or the ADA and all this might tell you that silver fillings last longer. They're stronger. Maybe 40 years ago they were, but not today. The materials today, the composite materials are very, very strong. The reality is they're going to last longer than the silver filling. They're not going to break the tooth. They're not going to leak. And so from that standpoint, your filling is going to last longer. It actually has properties that are more similar to natural tooth structure than a silver filling does. And so I always ask, when a dentist tells me, oh, it's stronger and it lasts longer, I say, well, maybe you're right. I mean, how many times does that tooth break and the silver filling is actually still sitting there, the tooth around it is gone? So I go, you're right, the silver filling is very strong. It does last, but the rest of the tooth around it does not. So the silver filling might be there, but the rest of the tooth shattered around it and it still caused you all this unnecessary dentistry. So yes, the composites do last as long, and in my opinion, if I were going to defend it, I'd say it lasts longer than silver fillings because it's not going to cause the problems that silver fillings do.
Someone's asking, what is the difference in cost?
There is a difference there. A porcelain restoration is going to have a lab cost, so we have to send it off to a lab, and they actually fabricate it, custom made for your mouth, send it back. So I would say that most of the time a porcelain restoration is going to cost at least 5 times more than a composite restoration, which is done chair-side, just like any filling. So from my standpoint, if you have something that's small, I'm going with composite. If it gets too large and covers too much tooth, then I'm starting to think about a ceramic material.
Okay. But that takes care of so many, I mean, 5 times as much, I mean, that sounds like a lot, but when you consider what it saves you by not going the amalgam routes, I mean, that.
Correct. I mean, what I always say is if it's a filling, it doesn't, wherever you are in the country, probably a composite filling is going to cost anywhere from $100 to $300 depending on the size. So it's kind of a wide range, but northern areas of the country cost a lot more than areas where I am. So $100 to $300 is probably a fair price compared to a porcelain restoration, which would probably cost anywhere from typically $500 to $1,000. Porcelain is going to last longer than the composite probably, but that's not so much the issue compared to the size of the restoration. So as like this slide is sitting up here right now, if this was just a filling, I could probably put a composite in here and feel good that the remaining tooth structure is going to last. Maybe here too, it's getting pretty large though. It's encompassing a lot of that tooth, and there's not much left natural tooth structure here. But in this case, we're missing over half the tooth, and there's no way that a composite restoration can be done here. It's just not strong enough for that, and that's where I definitely go to a ceramic restoration. And of course, these prices, I'm not talking about having dental insurance or anything else. Dental insurance pays for both of them. As for the composites, it tends to pay more, about 80%. And porcelain restorations are usually, most insurances pay 50% towards them. So depending on the dentist and if they're on an insurance plan or not, that also helps decrease the cost. But this slide here is a perfect example of silver fillings and the problems they cause. As I mentioned before, they expand and contract, so you're going to get these gaps in between the tooth and the filling. I mean, that is so large that it's obvious that anything, microscopic bacteria, food, is going to get stuck in between here, and this is leaking and going to have cavities underneath it. Silver fillings are notorious for breaking tooth. Half the tooth is gone. Only half of it remains. Yep, part of the silver filling's there, so it's a very strong restoration, but the remaining tooth structure was not strong enough to support it, and it broke off. Just looking at this, we can see that there's black all over this, all over the place. This is all cavities that are in the tooth. You can imagine the silver filling that was in here is just leaking, and the cavities just been spreading underneath it. And one thing we haven't mentioned here, this area right here is a tooth that's had a root canal. This is here for a reason because it's had a root canal. So my question becomes this also. Well, we know they're leaking, so these cavities gotten to the nerve of the tooth, caused a root canal and a crown and everything else, so a lot of unnecessary dentistry. Or is it actually the fact that the mercury that's in the filling itself is leaking out of the filling into the tooth, and it's a poison. Did it kill the nerve off? I can't tell you how many times when I used to do root canals, I would go into a tooth that just started hurting, drill out the silver filling, get to the nerve, and there's nothing there. Usually there'd be a lot of things going on, blood, moisture, and everything else, and the entire tooth would be just bone dry, which tells me that the tooth has been dead for a long time, years and years and years. So it's my opinion that the mercury from the silver fillings is leaking out and is actually killing the nerve in the tooth and leading to that root canal anyway. And that's one of the defenses that I think all these pro-amalgam dentists will not admit to, but when I question them, they get real quiet. As I mentioned before, the ADA and pro-amalgams, one of their reasons for liking the product is because it was an inexpensive product and easy to use. You can put it in a wet environment. As I mentioned before, okay, you've put it in an environment where you've got bacteria underneath the filling. It's contaminated from the very beginning. So I asked them, and I said, well, why aren't you worried about contamination under the filling? And that's when they get real quiet, because they know they've just been killed. The only reason they can put it in that wet environment and say they can use that product is because down inside, subconsciously, they know that the mercury is leaking out of that filling and killing the bacteria that they left underneath it. So why would we want to use this? Yeah. Why would we want to use this product anymore when it has mercury issues that's probably killing the tooth and going on into the rest of the body and causing all sorts of issues, mercury-type poisoning, causing who knows what kind of health problems, from headaches and thyroid problems to, at this point in time, we really don't know, but I can only imagine how far it's going to go. So it causes a lot of unnecessary dentistry by itself, a lot of extra money. Why would we want to use this when we could have something like this? These are composite to porcelain restorations. They're bonded to the tooth. There's no mercury in it. They do not expand or contract, so they're not going to break any remaining tooth structure. They do not leak because they're actually bonded to the tooth and become part of the tooth in an essence. And then last but not least, of course, it just looks a whole heck of a lot better.
It looks perfect. Absolutely perfect. Can't even tell where they are. Is that the same person?
It's the same person.
Oh,
That's
you're kidding.
Before picture, after picture.
Oh, that is amazing. I mean, even the gum itself looks so much healthier as well.
Exactly.
Wow. That's amazing.
Okay, so another question that always comes up, and if you do any research on amalgams at this point in time, there's a lot of dentists that are truly trying to capitalize on this. Just like in any business, something comes up, they're going to take advantage of it. So you're going to see a lot of people talking about protocols and how these things have to be removed. If you don't do it this way, you're doing it blah, blah, blah. It's all wrong. You have to do it my way. So there's a lot of things out there, but there is a general consensus in what is the best way to take them out, and this is the policy that I follow. First off, we want to use a rubber dam if possible. It's a rubber sheet that goes around this tooth and isolates the tooth from the rest of the area so that you can't swallow any particles or anything else that is being removed when we take it out. The only problem there is some people are claustrophobic feeling, so if they are, then we may not use it. Do we have to use it? No, we do not, but it's always best if we can. If we don't use it, not a problem. Most everything we get still is removed in our suctions and everything else. Patient may inhale a few more vapors, but the reality is, from my standpoint, the sooner the product gets out, the sooner you're going to be healed. Oxygen. So we place oxygen on you again so that you don't have the ability to inhale any mercury vapors that are being released. A high volume suction so that we can get any of the vapor and any of the pieces that are flying out, popping off, or just removed when we're drilling on the tooth. And another idea you want to do is try to remove all the silver fillings in chunks. And actually, this is very easy to do. the more drilling you do on it, the more mercury you're releasing. So the less drilling you have to do on it, and it comes out in big pieces, the better. The reality is, by the time you've cut usually through half of the silver filling, the whole thing just falls out, meaning it's not even stuck in the tooth. It's just barely kind of wedged in there and just ready to fall out at any time anyway. So there's no way this product is not leaking and causing problems. There's debate here. Some people will tell you should only remove no more than 2 at a time. Others, like myself, I don't see any reason for this. The reality is I want to get them out as fast as I can. Time is always an issue for patients and for everybody nowadays. The economy's tough, so we don't have all the time in the world to come in and get them taken out slowly. My opinion, my belief is the faster I can get all your amalgams out, the faster you are on your way to recovery. You can take vitamin C orally or by IV. It's been shown that vitamin C helps bind to the metals as it gets into your blood system. So taking it before the appointment, the day before the appointment, the day of the appointment, even the day after the appointment is a precautionary measure so that when we take it out, if anything gets into your system and into your blood, the mercury is going to help hopefully bind to this vitamin C and it can be excreted immediately. The other thing that we can do, and we work a lot with some fantastic physicians, is chelation therapy so that they can monitor that at the same time. And the reality is I don't get very involved with that part, but I will refer to these physicians and let them take care of that aspect of it. So from our standpoint, the best way to take these out is to have this rubber dam, have oxygen, using high volume suctions, which pretty much every dentist has, remove it in chunks. I believe in removing all of them at one time. Some believe in removing a few at a time, so the faster they're gone, the better off we are. And then potentially vitamin C by an IV or orally the day before, day of, day after the appointment, and possibly chelation therapy. And this is a picture of what it looks like. So you see this red thing here is the nose piece that's going over the nose. It's providing oxygen, and if somebody is nervous, you can have laughing gas at the same time. This purple here is the sheet we were talking about. It's called a rubber dam, okay, and it has a clamp that isolates this one tooth. So you don't see any other teeth here, just this one. So there's no way that we're going to have this patient swallowing any pieces of amalgam or anything else when we remove them. And then from my standpoint, again, I say we remove them as fast as we can. My belief is the sooner it's out, the sooner to recovery. There's one thing that I did not mention here, and I want to bring up, and it's something some of these dentists that I think are taking advantage of the system or the media scare at this point in time is called cavitations. Cavitations is something where a dentist says that when they pull a tooth, in the past, a wisdom tooth or anything else, there is a piece of tissue that surrounds that tooth that gets trapped in the jawbone and is causing the jawbone to deteriorate, or as a pocket for infection that's there and constantly infecting your body. This is something, it just does not make any sense. There's no way it can occur. And I forgot to put it in here. I should have done it again. I always remember at this point in time here about it. But if you have a dentist that talks about cavitations and your need to do it, do not have that done. As I mentioned, their idea is, if I can make it simple and kind of imagine it, when you pull a tooth, there's a hole in your jawbone there. The way the body heals is your tissue is going to go down into the bottom of that hole, and then it's going to start growing back up to the level of where your bone was. So it pushes up from the bottom of the hole up. What these dentists are talking about cavitations are trying to say is that the gums somehow or another jump over that hole, create like a bridge and heal on top, and then leave a pocket inside the jawbone. And it's this pocket that has bacteria and tissue in it, and it's causing a problem. First off, the body just doesn't heal that way. It can't jump over a hole. I mean, if you put stitches or something there, it's a different story. But a hole by itself, the tissue is going to grow down into the hole and then push up and become level. Same idea as if you have a cut on your arm. You get a scab that forms on that cut. The tissue grows under the scab and then eventually pushes up and pushes the scab off. It doesn't have you don't have a hole in your arm here and the skin jumps over it and have this big pocket of air that fills in underneath that. It just doesn't heal that way. So every time I have a dentist that talks about cavitations, my next question after that, after I've said that, is tell me then, if you do cavitations, their treatment for cavitations is to actually create a hole in the jawbone again, clean out this supposed hole in the jawbone, and then let it heal again. Well, if the problem was this hole in the jawbone from the beginning and the tissue jumps over this hole, when they create this hole, what's going to prevent the tissue from doing the exact same thing again? So there's just no way it doesn't happen that way. So if you ever hear a dentist talking about cavitations and you have to have cavitations done, do not believe it, do not do it. I actually had a patient here that was ready to fly to California because they had heard from some dentist there that you needed to fly out here, you needed to see us, stay in these hotels, and blah, 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 blah. We take care of this, no, 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 no. And I was like, that's crazy. There's nothing here. And I'll wait for one dentist one day to show me an x-ray where they say cavitations are needed and I can actually see a hole in a jawbone. To date, nobody's been able to do that. From that standpoint, that's pretty much the lecture. I got this last slide here to talk about, talking about these qualities of materials, the silver fillings versus porcelain, all this. This actually came out of the American Textbook for Operative Dentistry by Dr. William Christensen. He said the best restoration in dentistry is a porcelain inlay. So he's talking about a ceramic material, not talking about silver fillings and all this. The kicker for me at this point in time is the year that this happened. This was written in 1897. So again, if you remember, amalgam restorations have been around since the early 1800s and really in use since 1850s when the American Dental Association basically came into play, or 1870s, and it's been used for more than 170 years now. It was almost banned when told by the American Surgical Dental Society that it is malpractice to use it in 1843. In 1897, they even knew then that porcelain restorations were the best thing to use. And to date, the American Dental Association still supports the use of amalgam because it's cheap and it's easy to place. Put it in a wet environment and it works. That is my presentation. I hope people found that interesting. And if there's any questions, I would love to entertain them.
Absolutely. This is your family. Can you tell us what your daughters' names are?
Yeah, the one standing up is my older daughter. She's 14 now. Her name is Madison. The younger one is 6 years old. Her name is Marissa, and that is the Birmingham skyline behind you.
It's a beautiful picture. Well, Doc, thanks again. You have done it again. You have really done it again, and lots of great information. Some sobering thoughts you've left us with as well. And there are a lot of questions. So just let me know when you have to go. Okay, we don't want to keep you all night, so we'll just play this by ear. But we'll see how far we can go. You can type in the chat box. Just let me know how much time you have, or if you're bold enough, you can say it out loud.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. All right, thanks again. Folks, the presentation, thanks for joining us. Type in the questions in the chat box. This presentation will be available it is recorded, so again, it's free for members as well. Okay, let's start with the first question. This is this is not banned in Canada. Recently, I asked about using something other than amalgam, and I was given some vague answer. Okay, that's a comment. If you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, it's not banned in Canada at this point in time, but they have restrictions that they're saying that adults should only have 4 and children only 2.
Got it. Got it. What suggestions do you have for us to get our insurance companies to pay for the white fillings? What arguments can we make to the insurance companies?
Actually, what's going to be interesting, what's going to happen now that the FDA has come out and changed the product from a Class 1 to a Class 2 product, we have actually seen some insurance companies paying 100% towards the composite restorations now. A lot of insurance companies will pay for an amalgam restoration 100%. Then they say that if you want a white filling, we will pay 100% of the silver filling fee. You have to pay the difference between the silver filling fee and the white filling fee. For most insurance companies, the reality is those fees aren't much different. So if you have an insurance policy that pays 100% towards fillings and you want white fillings, you're probably looking at anywhere from $20 to $40 out-of-pocket expense per tooth.
That's not bad.
Now, there's so many different insurance plans out there, though. You know, you may have a plan that pays 80% towards fillings, which, of course, then you have a little bit more out-of-pocket expense.
But the insurance company probably wouldn't pay for the removal of the amalgam filling.
They do. They do.
That, huh?
Yeah. So it's never been a problem with any insurance company. They all do, and it really is just based on that individual person's policy, how much they're going to pay towards the filling.
Okay. All right. Was it or is it a common practice to include mercury in bridge work?
No, it is not. Typically, the bridge is a porcelain covering over a metal framework. That metal framework should be a lot of gold, platinum, palladium, and a couple other metals, but the majority of it should be those noble metals. There is some question. There are some cheaper labs out there that are shipping their work out to China and having the work done there, and there's the question of lead being in those metals. But there is no mercury in those metals at all. So any crown that has a metal base to it is not a mercury issue, but could be a potential lead issue.
Got it. And which one would you say is more dangerous in the mouth, lead or mercury?
Well, most of the crowns aren't going to have it. I think it's a very select few that have some lead in them. There's not many of those.
Okay.
The ADA's been more stringent on pushing about this lead and using foreign labs to do the work compared to truly addressing mercury.
All right. Anne wants to know, if you avoid metal in the mouth, what then are your dental implants made of?
They're made out of another noble metal. They're made out of titanium in general. So there's no mercury, there's no lead or anything else. It is a metal. I agree to that. It's one of these what are called inert type metals that the body's truly not supposed to react to. So if you were to go see an orthopedic surgeon and have to have screws placed in some massive fracture or any other type of implant like that, those are all titanium implants. And that metal has been shown to be pretty much non-reactive in the body.
Okay. Are all the white fillings healthier? How does one know, as all the dentists I have been to don't seem to want to volunteer any info, or they don't know enough to talk about it?
Yeah, there's the pro-amalgam dentist and everything else right now are trying to now turn around and say, oh, there's these products in the white fillings. You know, they could potentially cause issues or problems and everything else. So you're going to have some people who are going to try to say, well, here's this product in the white filling. This could cause problems, or this could cause problems. The reality is, the reality from that standpoint, in my opinion, is that we know mercury is a true poison. It's causing problems, but not only that, it's breaking teeth and it's leaking. Composite restorations, none of that occurs. I saw this yesterday, and I'd have to look it up, so I don't know for sure, but now they're trying to talk about the plastics have these products in them, bisphenol A and all that, like your water bottles. You shouldn't be drinking it because it can cause an increase in estrogen levels in men and stuff like this. I didn't look into the research, but they're trying to say that's in there. I don't know that the product is in composites, but I'll definitely look into that to see. Even there, I still think it's a much better product than the mercury that's in the silver fillings and the other facts that it breaks teeth and causes a lot more unnecessary dentistry. From my standpoint, it's the same thing that was said in that previous slide. The best restoration out there is still porcelain type restoration.
Okay. All right. If you get a root canal, do you end up with a hole where the root was, or does the dentist put a post into that hole? Do they fill it up with anything usually?
Yeah, when you get a root canal, there's a hole initially drilled to get down into the center of the tooth where the nerve sits. And they clean out the nerve and the blood vessels that are actually in the tooth and fill that material and fill that void, that hole back in with a rubberized material. That's what a root canal is. So the tooth no longer has a nerve or filling in it. Hopefully, the hole that they've created is small, and all you'd have to put is back a composite in that hole. And typically you want to crown the tooth because it's now very dry and very brittle and can break. But when you do fill in that hole, it should be composite material again. If you do have to use a post, there are metal posts. There are also fiber posts so that you can avoid metal completely again still.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
I think it should. But if you're still unclear, let us know. Someone wants to, let me try and get this question back. Okay. I think you meant that the mercury leaking out was killing the tooth, but you said that the mercury was killing the bacteria. Was that just a slip of tongue?
What I'm saying is there's the dentist. No, I think the mercury is a poison. Okay, so when they put this silver filling in a wet environment and leave bacteria underneath it, as the mercury is leaking out, this poison is going to kill some of the bacteria that's there. Does it mean it's cleaning it, cleansing it? No. I mean it's like a toxin, so it's going to destroy a lot of the bacteria that they left in there from the saliva and spit and everything else that's there. I also think that mercury is continuously leaking into the tooth itself and going into the nerve of the tooth, and once it gets to the nerve of the tooth, it's actually killing the nerve of the tooth also. So it's kind of, what I mean is it's a product that's kind of killing everything that's in its path.
Right. Okay. Okay. So it's not necessarily a good thing.
Correct.
For killing bacteria.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Wait. Someone's asking about vitamin C. I guess she's getting a little technical here, but she says, do you use ascorbic acid vitamin C or the natural? I haven't even seen this before. Acerola vitamin C. What kind of vitamin C do you use?
No, it's ascorbic acid. Yeah, I can't say that I've seen the other one either. So, if it's a patient that didn't feel like they needed to go see one of our physicians, didn't want to go through an IV vitamin C or anything else, then we usually just tell them the regular vitamin C that you buy over the counter there.
So they just come. They just load up on it before coming to the clinic.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Okay. What about removing all of the teeth for dentures all at the same time, if possible? Is that the best? Is there the danger of mercury vapors being given off when teeth are pulled?
From a mercury vapor standpoint, I'll probably not be too concerned. If you're having all your teeth pulled at that point in time, you have some periodontal disease, gum disease, something we've talked about in the past that can lead to that has bacteria that's entering your blood system from the periodontal disease aspect of it, and the bacteria is traveling through your heart and everywhere else and causing all sorts of problems and even increased risk of cancer. So from having your teeth pulled for that reason, that's the reason why, because of the periodontal disease. As for the mercury being released, you're not actually drilling the silver fillings out of those teeth compared to just pulling the entire tooth. So it shouldn't be an issue with mercury release at that time.
Got it. All right. What would you do instead of a root canal?
I would do a root canal. There's a lot of people. There's some research out there talking about root canals and the problems with them in this. Most of the scare and concerns with root canals actually came from what we call a sealer, almost like a cement that rubberized material is, when it's put in, there's a cement that goes inside the tooth also. There was a specific cement that was used that if it went out the root tip and actually into the jaw bone at all, would have killed the nerves around the tooth. So if it was the bottom jaw, that's one nerve that innervates the whole half of the bottom jaw. Your whole half of your jaw could be numb. And so it caused a big concern and scare, and most of the things you hear about with root canals are due to that one product, which really isn't used anymore. So the products that are out there now do not cause any kind of nerve damage, should not be an issue. The root canal material itself is a rubber material that comes from the rubber plant. It is an inert material, meaning that even if it went past the root tip of the root itself and into the jawbone the body doesn't respond to it. And so there's nothing now in root canals that cause any sort of damage or concern. If you were really adamant about not getting a root canal, well, you're going to end up having your tooth pulled because of the infection around it. And that's going to lead to needing bridges or implants, or if you do nothing, then teeth are going to shift, and you're going to start having bite problems, and we've talked about that in the past also, causing headaches and jaw pains and neck pains and numbness and a bunch of other issues.
Mm-hmm. Got it. All right. I had mine removed and mainly paid for by my insurance because I went to an allergy specialist and proved allergies to palladium, nickel, and mercury. So I guess she's giving a comment that that's one way to get the insurance to pay for it, prove you have an allergy.
Yeah, it did, and just I guess my question for her was, did they pay 100% of it? Did she have any out of pocket?
Sharon, you want to answer that question? Okay. Okay.
And we do have that. We have. I'll comment on that too. We have labs that we use. We have a lot of people that come in and talk. They'll go to their physician, holistic physician, whoever it is, and have all their metal levels checked. And when they have high mercury or lead or tin or zinc or some of these, lead's not so much the issue, but zinc and some of these other metals that are used, they'll come to us with these reports and saying, okay, I'm high in this. We look at their silver fillings. Yes, we could have this problem here. Usually with the report, we'll also, if they're concerned about their allergies, there can be reports done that show metals to every dental product that's out there so that we know for a fact that they're not allergic to anything we're using.
Okay. She said she paid just for the difference for gold rather than composite.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bill wants to know, how does one go about finding a dentist that practices this procedure in an area specific to their domicility?
I hate promoting, but I'll just probably say a Google search might be your best way first off. Try to find a dentist in that area. There's some websites that are probably better for it. One I would tell you would be the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry, which would be www.aacd.com. And you're going to be talking about some dentists there that are into cosmetics at least, so they're obviously not going to be promoting silver fillings. And that would be a good start.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, getting around to the end now. The reason that I asked the question, boy. Okay. Someone's referring to another presentation. You can't answer that question. I have implants to build up my lower jaw and covered with skin from my thigh. Okay, I have implants to build up my lower jaw, and the implants came. The jaw was covered with skin from my lower thigh. My lower denture sits on this built-up jaw. It is over 25 years old now. What would this be made from?
The implant itself?
Yeah.
The implant itself should be a titanium implant still.
Okay, so titanium is pretty much the gold standard, isn't it?
It always has been. Correct.
Okay. All right, here's the last question. I had a couple of cavitations done, which the dentist said there were more cysts, and when he cut in, a pile of fluid flowed into my mouth, and it was terrible tasting. What would this have been from, if not from where the root canals had been done?
Where the root canals have been done?
Yeah, it doesn't sound too clear a question, does it?
Well, my question there is, the cavitations are usually done around an area where a tooth has been pulled, not from a root canal. So I'm wondering what exactly was performed. If they had a root canal in the tooth, sometimes a root canal can fail, and it will get abscessed around the root tip still. Then that's actually not a true cavitation, but it's called a apicoectomy, where they actually go in there into that pocket, sometimes cut that root tip off and clean out the cyst that's formed. So the dentist may have called it a cavitation, but it's actually just a procedure that's been used for a long time.
Okay. Well, that pretty much covers it. There's some really good questions here, and I think you took care of most of it. I like the way that you've decided to hone in on a specific thing and really treat that topic, because that gives us even a more complete picture of what goes on, especially with amalgam fillings.
Well, good, great.
So thank you, and then I guess next time we're going to have you back on to do the TMJ specifically, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Always ready.
Okay. Appreciate it, Doc. Thanks again. And
again, I thank you. You know, the ability for us to go out and say the things that we need to, and inform and let people know what's really going on. It's our pleasure to be able to do it because you give us that opportunity.
Well, I just wish we had more people like you. Oh, appreciate it. All right. Well, folks, have a good night and God bless. Okay. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.